This is the poetry reading and roundtable edition of People and Their Poems, hosted by Sandy Lee Carlson.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being a part of this sharing of our poetry from Connecticut, the West Coast, and India. So we've got it covered. Got some newcomers, and basically we have a featured poet who shares 3 or 4 poems, and we react. And then go around the group and people share a poem and have a conversation. It's pretty informal. And then we post the video to, YouTube, so that it becomes available and hopefully gets other people interested in being part of a poetry group or having a conversation themselves. So welcome, everybody. We took a month off in December because the schedule got too crazy. And Roger was supposed to be our featured poet then. So he's our featured poet today. Roger, would you get us started with some of your poetry?
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you, Sandy, and it's good to see everyone. So I was going to start. I worked as an environmental professional for 40 years before I retired, and then came to poetry late in life, basically after I retired. But my first chapbook is called Travels Inside and Out. It's self-published, and I'm going to read a piece out of that speaks to some of the environmental work I did. The title of the poem is Dreams. It's inspired by a poem by Wilawa Szymborska that's also titled Dreams. Despite the ecologist's knowledge and skills, creating space between trees, adding age and species diversity, the dream not easily recreated. Old growth forest complexity mocks our attempts to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And with trees crown to crown protected from small forest fires, wildfires now rage, firefighters, bulldozers, fire breaks, struggling to protect homes on the forest fringe. On-scene reporters, press conferences, knowing exactly how to frighten us. Saving structures that should never have been built. Local politicians responding to homeowner rage, wanting to rebuild as quickly as possible. I imagine the Sierra Nevadas in the 1850s crawling with prospectors, infected with gold fever, clearing everything in their way, trees, mountains, Native Americans. Fires set by previous inhabitants kept the trees apart. White men on horseback galloped through the forest, old and young conifers, rare plants, fungi, and symbiotic relationships, teeming with wildlife, crystal clear streams. And we, the inheritors of this tragedy, thinking we are the conjurers and wizards, throwing away nature's blueprint, redesigning the forest in a new image. What can be achieved with the remaining scraps to reduce fire risk through climate resilient design? Despite the choices of our hearts, our amorous yearnings, our dreams, we could easily be swept away by economic and political reality, and then the alarm clock rings. Thank you. So my next chapbook is called Thanks for the Memories, and it was published by Orenaug Mountain Press. Thank you, Sandy. And it's primarily a collection of short memoir vignettes. There are a few poems in there, but it's mostly about memoirs of my life journey. And I thought I would read one, a childhood memory I thought I would read. And this is a short prose piece. Grandparent Saturdays. When I was 12, I started riding my bicycle about 3 miles every Saturday to visit my grandparents. Grandma went to synagogue on Saturdays and didn't return home until around 12:30 p.m. So I always arrived early around 11:30 and conspired with Grandpa to go out for lunch. We always went to the same place, Hasty House, and I always had the same thing, a barbecue beef sandwich on an onion roll with lemon meringue pie. He always had pie and coffee. I still have a hankering for barbecue beef sandwiches and lemon meringue pie 58 years later. After lunch, we would go to UCLA Student Union building to bowl. My grandpa was a small, lean man with a lot of nervous energy. He would walk so fast I sometimes had trouble keeping up. He had a mean hook and a fairly high bowling score for a man approaching 70. When it got too hard for him to bowl, we played pool. He was a good pool player, said he wasted his youth playing pool like a dang fool. After we returned, my grandma would admonish us for eating out. Sometimes my father would take my brother, sister, and I to have lunch at my grandparents' place, so I couldn't avoid grandma's cooking, which was kosher, meaning well done, approaching burnt or dried out. She always served a clear, tasteless gelatin that we kids had to choke down. My father would try to drop us off and leave, but it never worked. She would say, "Sonny, sit down and eat something." My father would always say, "No, mother," but to no avail because she wouldn't take no for an answer. After he sat down, my grandmother would say, "Sonny, do you want some peas?" "No, mother," but she was already ladling peas on his plate. Grandma left school early to work in a factory. She was self-educated, kept up with current events, lived within her means, and was fiercely loyal to her extended family. She often said, "If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all." Grandpa was the king of corny one-liners, mimicking Henny Youngman, "Take my wife, please." His nickname was Kibby because he was a kibitzer, someone who looked over the shoulder of the card players and suggested how they should play their hand. He would occasionally speak Yiddish. I never learned the language, but I did learn the meaning of certain words based on context. Suffice to say, Yiddish is very colorful language. We stayed at my grandparents' house all afternoon and played cards, sometimes gin rummy and other times a game called casino. I noticed that Grandpa dealt cards from the bottom of the deck so we kids could win. He didn't think I noticed, but I knew. Grandpa would make us root beer floats using a secret recipe. We kids would get pretty wild. To calm us down, Grandpa would bring out color by number palettes for us to paint. By the end of the afternoon, when my father picked us up, Grandma looked pretty frazzled, but was still in good spirits. When we were ready to go, she would always come running out with a pot of something for us to take home. We kids always would make comments on the way home about who was going to eat the food. Grandma was the glue that held our dysfunctional extended family together. After she passed, the tribe splintered. All I have now are a handful of photos, wonderful memories, and the gift of unconditional love at a time in my life when put-downs were plentiful. Back then, I was too young to understand how special this gift of love was. My only regret, it sure would be nice to have a few of those paint-by-number paintings. Thanks, and thanks again, Sandy. Thanks again for publishing this book for me. I much appreciated. So the next one I'm going to read, kind of along the same lines. I was in. I go to Rochester, New York, in September. That's where my wife is from, and we visit friends, and there's a bunch of big poetry events, and so we show up and reconnect with people. And so I live in the Sacramento Valley. We don't have Jewish delicatessens in the Sacramento Valley. So my wife decided that I should go to a Jewish delicatessen in Rochester, New York. And I guess it's a treat for me, and it certainly was. Blast from the past. Push open door, retro look, Fox Deli, Rochester, New York. Fantastic return to gastronomic Judaism. Day of guilty pleasure. Refrigerated display case, corned beef, coleslaw, cream cheese, Nova Lox. A shell of Junior's Deli in its prime, still a blast from the past. Hilarious signs on walls describe menu. Chicken salad and bacon, oy vey, Reuben King, Moyle Hebrew National Hot Dog. Everyone loves Ryman. Lots of soups on the menu, matzo ball, mishmash, kreplach. 80 degrees outside, skip the soup. I know what I crave, corned beef and pastrami on rye, deli mustard, coleslaw, kosher pickle plate. Oh my God. Waitress just like the old days, only 20 years younger. Great banter, takes me back to the time when I first shared Jewish food with you. Plate empty, sit in a semi-stupor, belly full, clogged arteries. Luckily, no Jewish delis back home. And I apologize, I should have mentioned this before. A moil is a person who performs the Jewish rite of circumcision. So it was a joke about Hebrew National hot dogs. And mishmash is a soup that has a little bit of everything in it. A kreplach is a beef-filled Jewish wonton and broth. So I should have mentioned that before, just some ethnic peculiarities. So thank you. So the last poem I'll read is I write a lot of poems about nature and the environment because that's an important part of my life. And one time I read this poem and that person was saying, "I didn't know you wrote love poems." Well, actually, I write a lot of love poems. So I'll share this one with you. Pieces of a Dream. Greeted by brilliant orange horizon, isolated patches of twinkling Mojave lights, scattered across endless desert vistas filled with Joshua Tree sentinels, harsh outlines of blackened bluffs visible above carpet of fog, fall freeze chills desiccated soil, promise of hydrating rains at hand. Pushing my head back into the headrest, wishing I could take off, fly to an exotic destination, pushing on the accelerator, feeling the exhilaration of speed. Well, now, would he have wings to fly? Would he be free, golden wings against the sky? As daylight takes overnight, cold and fog remain, but I am warmed by memories of you. When she wraps her loving arms around me, about drives me out of my mind. Yeah, when my baby kisses me, chills run up and down my spine. Familiar trek, parking lot to office, constant industry hum, being careful to stay within crosswalk lines. Opening my office door, the chill engulfs me, only sound heat passing through vents. Sitting back in my chair at my good old desk, a few moments of quiet before the daily drill begins. An eternity ago, we were told we could change the world. Now, meetings, monotony, politics, posturing, slowly wearing me down. Great work crowded out by trivia, someone else's priorities. Sometimes I want to scream, "Don't ask me what I think of you. I might not give you the answer you want me to." Finally able to escape, retracing morning drive, my spirit soars as Tehachapi Mountains come into view. Soft lighting of day's end in rolling hills, so different from the dazzling brilliance and harshness of desert dawn. Fall colors linger under snow-capped peaks. White wispy clouds streak across the sky, pink tinged from sunset's glow. Waking up next to you, lazy weekend morning, warmed by roaring fire, soak in hot tub, soft melody of wind chimes moved by gentle breezes, dark shadows confined to television, pieces of a dream. Thank you. And I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned that before. At that time, I lived in Tehachapi and I commuted to a job in the Mojave Desert, and it was early in the morning, and I had Sirius XM playing. And so you might have noticed there were certain songs that were embedded into the poem that I was listening to as I was reading it. So, and then the last thing I want to say is I have a new chapbook coming out. It's called 2,900 Miles of Poetry. It's an anthology. I'm in a poetry critique group with 5 other wonderful poets, and we've been doing this for about 2 years now, and we decided to go ahead and find a publisher and publish our work. We have very diverse voices, and everyone's an outstanding poet. And it'll be published by Foothills Publishing. This is the proof, and within the next couple of months, it should be coming out. So this will be my third book. So with that, we can move on. And thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. I particularly love the um, gastronomic Judaism. Well done, well done. I love that. And all the details.
Well, thank you.
Think you get the best Jewish food at a Jewish deli, right?
Yeah. Well, I haven't, I haven't lived anywhere, for various reasons because of my work. I like working at operating facilities and mainly in remote areas, both in the United States and overseas. I've actually worked on 6 continents doing environmental work, and so most of my Jewish food experiences are from earlier in life, which is probably a good thing because if I ate that way now, it'd probably kill me.
Roger, in your last poem, I really enjoyed the contrast between the steady truthfulness, the steadiness of the love life versus the volatility and the disappointments that came in with the professional life and the love that you returned to. It was nice to take the ride with you.
Well, thank you. I think Sandy knows this because she and I have talked a lot, but I had been divorced after a long marriage and was single for several years. And then through a mutual friend, I met my current wife in my 50s. And it's a very different experience falling in love in your 50s than your 20s. And we've been married for 16 years. But part of the reason I started writing is I had a very stressful corporate job. And so I started writing actually before I retired in about 2008 after I met my wife, who's a fantastic poet and strongly encouraged me. Started to write as a kind of a place to escape to my secret garden away from all the pressures of work. And it was very for me, it was very important to have a very sharp boundary between my work life and my private life, and poetry allowed me to do that. So, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I particularly really liked the poem that you had about like your grandmother and like the different foods that she was feeding you guys and how like you knew what the good food was, what the not so good food was. And it's so crazy because even though like I'm not, Jewish at all and I didn't grow up in knowing any Jewish families. Well, maybe a few, but I wasn't really involved in them. It's crazy how there's still so many similarities between cultures and like that, you could have this like matriarch of a family, this like grandmother who brings so many people together. And then commented on how like when she passed away, that there wasn't as much like connecting you to your other family members. And it's just it just reminded me of my own grandmother because that kind of happened in our family too when she passed away.
Yeah.
So I just really enjoyed that one.
It was, we made a lot of jokes about my grandmother and her cooking, but she was the salt of the earth, and I could do no wrong in her eyes. And that kind of unconditional love as a child that you don't really understand how precious that is.
Yeah.
And I still feel it today. And this is, she passed 50 years ago, probably now, or 40 years ago. But anyway, it was a very important part of my life.
It was beautiful.
Yes. Grandpa as your wingman, getting you out to the diner and coming up with all those wonderful things for you guys to do that were creative.
Yeah. Well, it was different. Like a lot of men in his generation, he wasn't much of a talker, but we shared a lot of good times, and we knew how we felt about each other.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roger. I really liked when you described your grandfather. You called him, I just loved the phrasing of this, a small, lean man with a lot of nervous energy. So I wrote that down. You had a lot of really good phrases to describe both grandparents. And that really helped make them characters in my mind. I just also wanted to say about the deli. I worked in one for 10 years, a pretty famous one in Westport, Connecticut, and there's nothing like it. And the fact that, everyone mentioned the great line about the gastronomic Jewish food, but I did this when I was a young girl, when I was in like 20, and I'm almost 60 now. And if I go in there still, it's the same chairs, it's the same tables. It's really delightful so you said the retro furniture, and I just, I, it just really brought it all back. So thank you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when you walk into a place like that and you think about, I grew up in West Los Angeles, so Juniors, and Cantors and places like that, which are iconic, that been around forever. Juniors is gone now, but Cantors is still there. But there's a certain way Jewish delicatessens look, and you walk in the door and you go, oh my God, this is like going back 40 years. It was unbelievable.
Thank you. And and just again, the references that you make that bring us all together, regardless of where we're coming from culturally, that those things resonate, really speak to the power of your poetry.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Margie, would you read for us next?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
So just to give a little bit of context to the poem I'll be reading, there was a gentleman that I worked with for many years who passed away a few months ago. So after his passing, I kind of had like inspiration, and I wrote something for him. So it doesn't have a title, but I'll just get it started. A man I knew for 9 years died today, sustaining injuries of a whole sky. At work, I knew him to be surly, uncomplicated, and would not answer an email if it was longer than 2 sentences, and spoke only in eye rolls and heavy sighs. But I didn't know he knew how to commune with clouds, atrophied his body to atmosphere. He stepped off that metal doorway, his last steps ever, out of that plane, and submit himself to thrill. The rush of wind and memory, pure gravity, peace, before chaos knocked into him and the emergency parachute unfurled like a mother's dress to drape him on his descent. He must have known in his body that he loved something more than he was afraid to die. When he arrived back to earth, he was deposited in sweet grass until every part of him was painless. For 2 weeks, he stepped in and out of delirium. For 2 days, he knew he was already dead. Last night, he left the room like a gust of wind, dove right out of that hospital bed, and dropped in reverse, his final jump into freefall.
Margie, that's an amazing poem. That
Oh, thank you.
that you would know this man in your work life, and that he wasn't so great to be with, heavy sighs and eye rolls, right?
Yeah.
But to write such a tender poem about him, it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm very moved by that, and the way you describe him lying in the grass. I forget the exact phrase, but it was really lovely. Also, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
He was an interesting inspiration, because at work he was so he was kind of a grumpy dude, and he wasn't always the happiest guy, and he kind of would rock around, and he would kind of just be upset with people. But then outside of work, he was like this amazing like jumping instructor, and he did thousands of skydiving trips, and went all over the world to skydive, and he was like such a thrill seeker. And it was just crazy that like we found all this out about him after he passed, and like that I had no idea that this like guy who actually like so many people in the skydiving community knew him and like knew about him. There were like pages on Facebook about him and all this stuff, and like how amazing he was. And then I was like, but that's Rob, the grumpy guy down the hall, Like, no, that doesn't add up. So
You
it
never
was,
worked with him.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it was interesting inspiration. He seemed like a good subject to write about.
I really liked how you started that, and that speaks to, the division of our personal lives from our professional lives. And
Yeah.
you start with it was something like a man died that I worked with 9 years, or and so you start with just this very precise number of how many years you worked together. As it says, I didn't know him that well, or or I know him professionally. And
Yeah.
so I liked how you start the poem, and then you kind of dive deep into who he was.
Yeah.
I think you captured all that really well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice of you.
As you were reading, I was just trying to jot down some of the lines that struck me, and they kept striking me, so I kind of had to give up. But the phrase atrophy to atmosphere and the rush of wind and memory. But then when you get to know in his body, he loves something more than being afraid to die, just speaks to the depth of who this person was. And also how there's so much more to a person than what we see. And the way you honor him is just really lovely. And
Thank you so much.
wherever he is now, I hope he has said he knows about your poem or knows in his spirit. The person he worked with was quite lovely.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Margie.
Thank
David, did you have a poem you wanted to share with us?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a relatively, I wouldn't say a novice, but I am new to this. I just started last year. I'm maybe a little older. I'm pushing 80. And I come from a playwriting background, mostly of adaptations and translations. And I just started writing some poems. I do have a novel coming out at the end of the year. If Conduit Books and New Regal House can decide which is going to publish it. So I wrote this poem. I think Roger will appreciate it, especially because I've escaped to nature. But I wrote this poem for the holidays. It seems a little tinged by recent events, but it still expresses my feeling about things. I call it Advent. From the floating raft of sleep I rise to welcome dawn with artless heart and eyes, and savor scenes that others seldom see as apprehension shades their observations. Dobson fly and Luda moth hang moored upon the window screen, and on the granite stoop below, brave spadefoot toad suspends retreat in greedy expectation. A garbage pail lies overturned, assailed by bandit coon or phantom possum, and tufted divots mar the lawn, remains of nutting squirrel and grubbing skunk. A cottontail enjoins its mate, its binky acrobatics sporty procreation. And overhead, a chevron flock of geese beats out the steadfast pulse of pending day. I wonder at these creatures of first light and celebrate the advent of another day. I thank my kinsfolk of the dawn for gifting me surprise, delight, and possibility. Thank you.
Wonderful, David. I really enjoyed that. That's very 19th century poetry, and I mean that in the most positive way. I really like it. It's retro. It's beautiful. It's very classic 19th century romantic type poetry, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Everybody tells me that. I'm 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 old fashioned.
But you're a morning person, David. Creatures of first light, kinsfolk of the dawn. I'm a high school English teacher, and I'm the only morning person in my classroom ever. So it's always a delight to encounter kinsfolk. Thank you. That was lovely.
I particularly like the way that you described the different animals, like the possum and the raccoon and the squirrels and the skunk. You made them sound more like friends and less like, these like pesky animals that, come into our garbage. It was almost like you brought like a magicalness to their existence, where there was like, of course they would be rummaging. That's like what they do. You know what I mean? It was like, it just all felt very natural, which, and just the poem itself, I agree, with the previous comment that it felt very, like old fashioned, but in the best way, where you're bringing like things that are modern, into a poem that makes them feel timeless.
Thank you.
I've already pushed 80, so let me encourage you to keep going. And I only started writing poetry fairly recently in my life. And again, I'd like to say that the poem is lovely, a very classy poem in a classic style. So you go for it. Keep going. Good job.
Well, I majored in Goethe and Schiller, so I guess I'm influenced.
Holy smokes, I guess you did.
Oh, and Shakespeare. I went to University of Birmingham in England and was with the Royal Shakespeare. So yeah, Shakespeare does it for me.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Isabell, would you read next?
Okay, sure. Can I just say that a very, very, very good friend of mine died on the 19th of December. And I only found out about it on Wednesday or Tuesday. And I was going to drive down from Oroville to Sacramento, where she was in an assisted living place, and found out that she had passed. And I have written a piece about it, but it's in Oroville, and anyway, I may read it at her memorial, but anyway, just this guy, Suraj Sarkar, this wonderful Indian guy, produces an anthology probably once a week. And I have submitted Suraj Sarkar, and he lives in Cooch Behar, India, which is West Bengal. Here's a little tiny picture of him. He's on Facebook all the time, and I've probably submitted 15 or 20 poems to him, and usually prints them, and has just made a book of the two of us, chapbook, which I haven't gotten a copy of yet, but I will. But so this he's World Common Literature Day Celebration magazine. This I submitted a month or two ago, and who will you be today? I love you. I long for you, but I don't know what to call you. God implies a separate entity, which you are not, nor am I. Has Rumi spoken all the endearments that I might be able to think of? Can I create a new language that could express how I love you? I know you love me. Did you come from Yahweh? That would make sense. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Muslim. I'm always looking for you. What form will you take today? Yeah. Thank you.
I love how personal that conversation is, Isabell. Lovely.
Thank you. I had almost forgotten I'd written it. I was looking through books the other day when I found it.
Yeah, that was lovely. I loved how you talked about how like God and you, to call God by a name is to separate, what you feel as God, which is not separate from you. So I loved that line. And I loved also the ending, asking like, what form will you take? And I think that's a question that not many people want to ask when they look at religion and they look at the world and they look at people's different beliefs. Everybody sees each other as separate, but in reality, at least in my mind, I think all of us are kind of usually talking to the same entity. And it's not so separate, it's not so different from each other, and it's just taking different forms. So I loved the unity and how it ended the poem. So
thank you.
Yeah.
My belief is that we are all one. We are all faces of God. We are all God, and it's pretty scary sometimes. I don't want to be, I don't want to have to think of myself as being this superpower, and I want to be able to tolerate, but accept fully whoever it is that I'm looking at or talking to or thinking of, because we're all we're all part of the creation. God is always creating, we're always creating, and it's anyway, I don't mean to be churchy, even though it is Sunday. But it's something that I work on.
Prithvijeet, since we touched down in India, kinda, by way of publishing partner, would you read for us next?
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of divine, as Miss Isabell said just now, because my poem is also based on the Ball poets of West Bengal. And she was talking about this anthology, which is published in Cooch Behar, which of course is also in West Bengal. So the poem I'm going to read today, once again, unveils a part of my history, a part of Indian history, and this relates to the Ball. You write those words as Paul, Ball poets, who are mystical, wandering poets, nomadic by nature, who are sort of legends in West Bengal, and it's said that they still exist in the state and sometimes beyond the state lines, and they embody a spirit of creativity and imagination, and they are dressed in these robes, which are sometimes rags and which can sometimes be saffron robes or of other colors, and they carry a one-stringed instrument called the iktara. So they are legends in Bengal. There are so many songs and folklores written about them. So I wanted to write a poem about them since a very long time, and I'm glad that the thread of West Bengal kind of, brings me from Miss Isabell's poems to my own. So here it is. Ball. Look, the balls are passing the city's final alleys without playing a tune on the iktaras. In this seemingly genteel evening, citizens of an inverted democracy are crying foul for freedom. Their cries are being thrown around like frenzied shouts towards the farthest walls. A long time ago, the quiet rhythms of sober voices and the lilt of the iktara had eluded their ears stuffed with malcontent. Everyone talked to themselves in the final alleys of this great big city. These ball poets will stumble upon these high and low roads and realize soon this city is not congruent enough to hold their passage. Some threw stale flatbreads at them. A bunch of knaves released a pack of hungry dogs after them. Silver-tongued taunts and 1,000 landless words passed through lips within the thousands of minutes that kept track of lucid time here. They are pedestrians, traveling minstrels on foot. A few stumbles on a few select roads cannot bring them downfall, nor can general hunger or calamities of other hues claim them. They walk, they pass through cities, they integrate cities of time in their myriad celebrations, sometimes without so much as playing a tune on the iktaras. The world beckons. They walk, prudent in what they eat and drink, without stumbling on uneven roads. They walk without blindfolding the truth. Everybody else sings blind tunes while living under a void of bright lights. At last another minstrel said, "Some will come, some will go. Almost all in this world will pass the same roads as these ancient poets and musicians. They still walk without stumbling on uneven roads. They still walk without blindfolding themselves to the naked truth." Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that was fantastic. Loved it. It was wonderful.
Thank you so very much, sir.
The repetition, Prithvijeet, of they walk, and the image of the contrast of being, they will not blindfold themselves to the truth while others do. And that language that comes towards the end of the poem kind of brings us back to the beginning about this, and it's being seemingly genteel while democracy is under threat and people are suffering. The whole visual of that and the uneven roads was just a beautiful image that transcends, again, culture and is understandable in a different context on the other side of the world. So thank you.
I picked up on the same line that Sandy did. I really liked without blindfolding the truth. I like the idea that in these alleyways, right, poets have passed. And it just made me think about like the streets I walk, like what am I missing that poets see? But, you know, I also liked a lot of the, I think, was it Landless Lips? Is that?
Yes. Yes.
That was
Yes.
wonderful. I really liked that phrase. It made me think. So it was a wonderful journey in your poem.
It's so wonderful, really, how all these different cultures and the different arts, the poetry, the music, the paintings, and so forth, are also different, but all the same. Like you were saying, that we all will travel the same paths, and it's true. You know, we all. I mean, this life is. You know, and also, food is always brought up. Anyway, but it's yes, really, really beautifully done, and it just all ties together. I mean, again, thinking about seeing God, seeing spirit in everyone, and so forth. I always think of the millions of Hindu gods and the Tibetan Buddhist gods as just being the faces of God, you know? And again, I also love the blindfolding to the truth. It's particularly pertinent, I think, today, right now in this country. So thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you so very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could you
Because I personally also believe.
Sorry. I just wanted to, could you spell their names?
Yes. Baul. Ball.
B-A.
That's U-L.
U-L. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Not B-A-A-L, not the same.
No,
okay.
no.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Amy, would you read next?
Sure thing. I'm trying out a poem that I'm hoping to submit to you, Sandy, for your anthology on trees. So still working through it, but gonna give it a go. So, all right. Microfield, Connecticut, 2018. A microburst, micro meaning massive, spiteful giant, exhaling devastation, throwing horizontal rain, snapping trees in half. A voice in the background. Mom, Mom, shocked. The pop of electricity, a feverish here and gone, standing in the rain, slippers on, holding my breath, micro person, dangerously riveted. My messy, skinny shagbark with a case of scoliosis, down. My bountiful oak straddling the property line, down. My sugar maple with capacious holes, down. The elegant red maple shading our porch, uprooted. Personal additions, pinned or crushed. The sycamore sapling, the Franklinia so rare, the happy yellow magnolia, wilder cultivated, friends. Friends who are now wood, chippers grown, belch, a 70-foot tree digested by machines into microbits. I cannot digest it. Hope arrives in a trunk, a micro hope that I don't have room for yet, a seedling pine donated by empathy. I don't let it die, but it takes years to plant.
Amy, that must have been heartbreaking. The trees are friends. Oh, you lost so many of them. I remember when that microburst happened, the trees in Southbury just snapping one after the other. Yeah, awful. But I like your phrases. I like the way you keep using micro. Micro person, felt like a micro person. And then micro hope. That was really a good way to do it, I thought. And also your phrase, the trees digested by machines, and then you have trouble digesting what happened. It's a very moving poem, it really is. You put your heart into it.
Thanks. I feel like I could cry right now still. I've never seen such massive chippers. I lived on Route 25, which is, for people who live elsewhere, it's like a state road, so it's a significant road. And it was like tractor trailers, and these massive arms that just take the trees and take whole trunks and put them in the wood chippers. It's stunning. But makes me, if I felt that devastated, I wonder how people in areas where, Roger, there are fires or whatever, right, and they see their environment completely devastated. It was the first time I was ever really impacted severely by something environmental.
Well, I spent a lot of time hiking in the Sierras, and I've been to places that were devastated by fires, and it is a very eerie experience. But I take hope in the fact that there is renewal after a fire, and many of these areas do come back. But yes, it's like walking through a graveyard in a place that used to be different. So yes, I definitely hear you on that.
And you're naming the trees and calling them friends. I can so relate to that. And they are. Robin Wall Kimmerer talks about that, about the Maple Nation inbreeding sweetgrass. And I'm reading this book, and I can't think of the title of it right now, but it's by a New York Times reporter who learned to climb trees the way professional arborists do with the ropes and the whole thing. And I read a chapter and then I take a nap because it's so devastating. it's like, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I'm reading this book. I need a comedy after this, but it is a deeply personal encounter. In fact, this morning I walk around with pruners, so when I see the invasives, the vines going around the trees, I can slow the damage. And Ed and I, under cover of darkness this morning, went out and liberated a tree down the road, so because every one of them counts and they do so much for us. And, the litany is just very effective, and just imagining you there in your slippers and your son. Oh my God. Yeah. Powerful poem.
To actually be there and see it happening. It's so I mean, that was so powerful. I mean, I can certainly cry too. I mean, it's one thing, like my daughter and son-in-law had a hotel here in Sonoma County, and it was the only building left standing in the neighborhood in the 2017 fires. But we didn't see it till afterwards. And it was horrifying. They had rented a house when they first bought this property and lived in it. It was absolutely next door to the hotel. And the only thing that was left of this house was a circular metal staircase that went to a couple of the floors. It still gives me chills to think about it. But to be there, I mean, when you're describing the trees, the snap, it just, man, very, very powerful.
It was just 15 minutes, literally.
Wow. Yeah, I have to say I loved the language that you used. Just like the pop, the digested, there was a few in the beginning that I didn't get to like write down, but the wording and like the way the words sound in the poem was just as violent as the acts that were happening in front of you. So I loved how you chose words so well for this poem. It definitely hits you hard when you're hearing the words like spoken out loud and you're listening to the poem in the whole. It's like, yeah, you feel like you're right there with you, standing, watching this happening. And to agree with everybody else, trees and nature in general, especially the nature that you wake up every morning and greets you, and brings you such peace usually, to see it now be like in this destructive environment is like, I can't imagine how painful that was. But I have to say, like the way that you wrote that poem, it was perfect. It was beautiful.
Thanks, Amy. Julie, would you read next?
This one is called Of Her Essence. I never smelled cigarette smoke as a child, though both parents were smokers. It was the natural atmosphere of our interior spaces. After I moved to my own place and Mom visited, I became aware of the acrid aroma she carried into the room. When she lit up, my body rebelled, creating a headache, despite wide open windows. I asked her to smoke on the deck, and she complied, though in cold weather, she descended to the basement, where walls and rugs of my office absorbed her smoky offering, taking days to dissipate. Years later, clearing out her apartment, I could still detect remnants of her signature scent on clothing and books, even though she'd stopped smoking 10 years earlier. I sat on the floor, enveloped by a familiar mist, the fragrance of home, of her all-encompassing embrace, the fragrance of mother love.
My mom also smokes cigarettes, and I can so relate to the smell. Like after having lived in a house with her and she smoked cigarettes, I didn't notice it as much. But when I moved out, I myself don't smoke, and I can smell it on her, and I can smell it on other people when I encounter them in the world. And it's crazy how it's both not a pleasant smell. I love the word you used, was like acrid, I think. But it's also a comforting smell, which is like a weird juxtaposition of like feelings where it does remind you of home, and it's comforting, and it reminds you of, like, in this case, your mother, and same here. So I really related to that.
I can identify with that too, Julie, and you captured it so well. It is part of the whole story. And my mother used to turn on the kitchen fan and smoke under the fan, like it was all just going up there, and we'd have to shout our conversations over the fan. But this, and it was always this sort of recognition that this was something that was going to catch up with us, and it did. She died of lung cancer. But it is what it is. It's part of who she was. And that Marlboro man, he's a tough guy.
I guess I just have to chime in here too, because, I think any child of like the 70s or maybe 80s, or Margie, you're definitely younger than me, but, our parents smoked, and they smoked in the cars with the windows rolled up. And as a child, you were like, oh, right. And then, you do smell it more, after you leave. So all of it just rang so true. And images were going through my head, and I thought, oh my God, we could probably all write a smoking poem. Anyway, the word acrid describes it perfectly too. I thought that word was just perfect.
But also the lovingness of your giving your personal space to your mom in the cold weather to have a place to smoke, I mean, it's also metaphorical for finding that midway point with people who do things that we don't quite know what to do with or don't have common ground to stand on, but sometimes we give way because the love we feel is greater than the difference.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Your mom had a loving daughter.
Oh, thank you.
Bill, are you there? Will you read for us?
Mute.
There you go.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted, but invisible,
Oh
Bill. You are the best man.
God. Well, you can't get my face in there, huh? You don't really need my face. I'll just read, right?
Okay, Bill, you be mysterious.
I mean, everything has been so incredibly heartfelt. I don't know whether this is going to change the mood a bit, but after all, your husband did request this poem, right, Ed?
I did. What poem is that?
You requested When I Sat on the Alligator.
Yeah,
No, I can honor your request, or I can go on to something a little kinder or more heartfelt, or I don't know. I must have had a broken heart somewhere. In fact, let me read. This one will be new to everybody. It's short. It's called I Met a Man Walking. I met a man walking. I, driving, seeing the man, stopped, although this was not my habit, and asked the man if I could help, if I could drive him somewhere. Yes, he said. Thank you, he said. I could use a lift. So we sat together and we drove together and we watched the road ahead, clear in the bright, warm light of the sun. When we got to where he was going, he got out there and, looking at me, he said, thank you. And I, seeing him there, said he was welcome. Then again, I went on my way, thinking that I had lived so long to have finally begun. And that's the end of that one. There you had.
So I actually, while I was listening, I was making a connection in a sort of broad way back to Prithvijeet's poem, this idea of the journey. And if I think more about that poem, about the journey is a poem, is the art, is life, and the stranger that you opened yourself up to, and dare I say it, the kindness there that you
which was not my habit. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. You hit it. Do any of you pick up hitchhikers?
Yes, I have.
Things have changed. Yeah.
But I've been a hitchhiker. Oh my God, I hitchhiked across Ireland many years ago. And
I hopped on trucks and trains and everything. But
yeah, it was a blast.
This was my turn to drive and pick somebody else up. Yeah.
So were you driving a car, your Bronco, or the motorcycle?
No, it was a car.
Okay. There's somebody on the back of the bike.
Well, I've had them, but no, I never picked anybody at that way.
Maybe on this new
route. Yeah.
I really like that this, poets are verbal people. And
Yeah.
I liked that it wasn't terribly verbal in the sense of, right, you don't really talk about the conversation you had in the car. You don't relate that at all. It's literally just about sharing space and experience, right?
Yeah.
I really liked that. I thought that was
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just something that happened, but it made a difference.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Christine, would you read next?
I'd be happy to read. And hello, everybody. It's so nice to be with you. I feel that I'm new to this group, although I do know Sandy and Ed. So just really a pleasure to hear all your work. I'm going to read a poem that is written in the voice of one of my ancestors who lived in Norway. And the conceit of the poem is that she's writing about the Norwegian goddess named Freya. And so some of you may have heard of Freya. So Freya was a badass, you know, she like had a wild boar, she had these cats, she slept around, but she managed to hold on to her husband. So anyway, I was sort of intrigued by Freya. And this is in the voice of my ancestor whose name was Anne Haraldson. So it's called Freya's Button. The question sits like a forgotten button at the bottom of the laundry basket, small and circular, abandoned, perhaps torn from a shirt or skirt in the heat of undressing, perhaps clipped from a garment, worn and tattered, alone, useless, its pearl-like sheen in shadows. What shall I do about you, Freya? You whisper to me in the night, the purr of your cats, your restless scramble. You are anxious to be gone, but to where? Is this an invitation or a warning? I'm confused, not sure which way to point my own chariot. The children dozing fitfully after piling up the kindling, folding shirts, sweeping, peace. No, not peace, just a quiet as the afternoon steals on to evening. Are you obsolete, a myth created by the ancients, your robe of raven feathers, your faithful boar? Hans returns from the barnyard, having fed the sheep. He is worn, weary, and so am I. Grateful for his meal, his pipe, the fire waning into night. I want to be grateful. I do. 5 healthy children, a man who takes each day in stride. But I look at you, Freya, a goddess who loved many men, yet still kept her husband, and I wonder, what would Hans say if he knew how I'd tremble to look at our neighbor? A teacher, his hands are smooth as wind-washed pebbles in the fjord, smooth as kitten's fur. Can I imagine that type of softness against my skin? Where to put this longing? Freya, shall we steal away together? Climb into your chariot? Escape to the clouds? Bathe naked in the streams of another world? Nestle pelt to pelt? Will you teach me how to keep what I have, yet reach for the missing button? Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Did Hans ever find out?
No. Hans is a gentle soul, but clueless.
I have to say, I love that you wrote about Freya. She's definitely a Norse goddess that I also have been interested in.
Oh, cool.
I love that she is both like a goddess of like love and beauty and things, and then also of like war, which is very like a Norse thing, you know, that they have those connected to each other. But and I agree, she's a badass. And I just love that you took the poem in the direction of like having it be not from your own perspective, but from an ancestor's perspective, and it's also connected. So it's connected you, this ancestor, and then this goddess who's a part of this culture. So it's like all 3 of you are together. But yeah, I love that the poem follows such a simple item, such as like a button, which you don't normally think about in your life. You know, you just button things up and you're not thinking about it. Usually it's like out of mind. But you've brought like such beautiful attention to the simple item of a button. So I really like that.
I love the speaker's rich interior world in contrast with that button and the ordinary. And I think it kind of takes me back to Margie's poem, this rich interior world and the dreams and the passions that people have. And sometimes daily life comes down to figuring out how to get the button back on. And those quotidian things of life that consume us while the fires burn.
I just wanted to say, I thought, this poem did so much. There was a story, a character portrayal there. There was the wonderful juxtaposition with the button, and then this careful detailing of the button. And so it's working as like a metaphor, and try hard to reach to attain all that with my poetry. And I usually fall flat on my face. So you must feel terribly accomplished. So
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, I've been just thinking about my ancestors a lot and thinking about what is my heritage. And it's just they were in Norway and they came to this country, and what made them leave? We don't know, but we get to imagine it, right? We get to imagine it. And we get to imagine like what a perilous journey it was. How much you must have longed for something different, right? To have gotten on that boat, you must have really longed for something different. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Here's this poor housewife, and she's looking at the neighbor and thinking, he looks pretty good. But on the other hand, I've got these 5 kids and Hans. So just those conflicting emotions. That's what I wanted to play with here. So thank you for listening, everybody.
It's very intriguing, Christine. I've done a similar thing with my background that you're doing. Is been very interested in learning about the migration of East European Jews to New York City at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. And that generation, my grandparents didn't talk about any of that. But there's a lot that's been written now, and it's the same sort of thing. It's just wanting to understand what life was like in the Lower East Side at the beginning of the 20th century with people that came to this country that had nothing and didn't speak English. So yeah, it's something that I've spent some time with, and so I can see what the appeal is.
Thanks, Christine. Ed, do you have something today?
I'm going to go with a short one since we've been going for quite a little bit here. But this is an ekphrastic piece, and this is the little image. And it's called Tasting the Snow. The moon glows brightly in the distance, illuminating the crystals of slowly drifting flakes and the snow at rest in the fields. Nearby, like a child experiencing his first winter, a lone blackbird stands tall, neck stretched, head back, beak open, and beckons a snowflake to its tongue. Thank you. I thought maybe also appropriate because of all the snow that we've gotten in the last week and a half or so.
You described the snow so well. I've been noticing the sparkly things on the snow lately. It's really so pretty. Yeah. I love the image of the black crow on the white also. It's really nice.
Thanks.
And the power of the crow to beckon the snow. Oh, so I caught myself rhyming there. I didn't know if I wanted to finish it. But anyway, yeah, that's the magic. That's the magic of it all.
Ed, I thought you captured sometimes how the light plays on the snow. Like this morning, there was just this fine mist, and I didn't know it was snowing until like a light had come on. So you using the moon and being able to, see that snow. It all felt very, like you said, appropriate for the last couple of days.
And we've had those big moons the last couple of days. So,
I think we've all.
Okay. If it's okay, I'll read a little poem that I wrote about December 29th. The poem is called December 29. I'm a freak of nature. I really love the shorter days. I feel kind of bad when they get longer. I don't know. Just something inviting about the darkness. But this is called December 29. Late December is generous with darkness. The hours of night roll into the hours of morning. The body slows. The body sleeps. The body dreams through the end of the counting months that follow the harvest into January. We honor the God of new beginnings, the power to look forward and back, to step onto a new path, into the unknown. Right now, on December 29, at 6:30, there is no light, yet the geese fly. I hear them call out to each other in the rain of a warm interlude at a lightless time. This is the way. Let us go. Thank you. We live near a river, so the geese are always organizing themselves nearby, and it's pretty awesome. Even in the coldest of days, the Canada geese have their organizational meetings in the morning and do their thing.
Yeah, we live in the along the Central Valley Flyway, and we have millions of migratory birds that come to mostly the rice fields and the wildlife reserves. And it's so I could really feel your poem, Sandy. It's wonderful, especially in November as the migration is coming in at night to hear the geese flying overhead in formation.
Thanks, Roger.
That was beautiful, Sandy. And the communication, in the dark kind of thing, very, very special. I think I could really feel your feeling. And I must say, I am not a fan of the days getting shorter, and I always love it when December 21st rolls around and I know the days are getting longer. But there is the quiet, there's very special feeling about the darkness, and you really stated it well. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabell. All right, everybody. Well, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful January. Hope it doesn't get any more interesting than it already is in the world. We'll pray for boredom. That's what we'll pray for. And we will see you February 1st.
It was great seeing everyone. And
Likewise.
I really enjoyed all the diverse voices. Thank you. It was really fun today.
Thanks, Roger, for being a feature. Thanks, everybody.
This has been People and Their Poems. Glad you could join us. If you'd like to know more about what we do, please visit our website at orenogmountainpublishing.com. Check out our poetry anthologies and learn how you can take part in an upcoming collection. Let us help you publish your next book. Once again, this has been People and Their Poems, presented by Orenaug Mountain Publishing. Have a great day.